Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, first am I. Good evening. It is Thursday. The weather seems to be doing its thing again, and that is one of the things we'll bring you fully up to speed with over the next half hour. In a moment, we'll speak to George Shimon live down at the Met Office to find out the full situation. Also tonight, we're going to hear from the new Health and Social Care Minister. We'll also find out why Treasury is seeking specialist advice, and I'll probably learn to speak, over the Liverpool ferry terminal. And a Manx duo who've had a cracking 2024 tell us about their plans for next year. If you'd like to get in touch this evening, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Lewis for a look at today's main news headlines.
Fastamai. 3 men have been jailed for a collective total of more than 46 years after raping a teenage girl. James Marcus Doherty, Graham Peter Skillicorn and Stephen John Cannon have today been sentenced at Douglas Courthouse. They denied raping the 18-year-old during the sustained incident at a property in Douglas on the 25th of June 2022, but were found guilty after trial. Addressing them in the dock, Deemster Graham Cook told them none of them had accepted their offending, adding, "You are liars." Tonight, Manxmen sailing to Heysham and overnight return has been cancelled due to the adverse weather forecast. It's the second time today crossings have been called off as stormy weather conditions approach the island. An amber weather warning has been issued and there are doubts over each upcoming sailing through until Saturday night. Meanwhile, Ronaldsway Airport is advising passengers due to travel to and from the island over the next few days to prepare for potential disruption. Treasury is seeking specialist legal advice over some of the costs incurred during the project to build the Isle of Man ferry terminal in Liverpool. In the House of Keys this week, Minister Alex Allinson admitted the final cost of the development is still unclear. And a new Executive Director of Crown and External Relations for the Isle of Man Government has been appointed. Christopher Brannigan has relocated to the island for the position. In the latest international news, one of the killers of transgender teenager Brianna Ghey has lost his attempt to appeal his murder sentence. Eddie Ratcliffe's 20-year minimum term's been upheld by the Court of Appeal following the incident in Warrington last February. The UK Prime Minister has insisted his plan for change is not a reset, but a way of monitoring how well his government's performing. Raising living standards, putting police back on the beat and ending hospital backlogs are among Sir Keir Starmer's targets, but he didn't commit to a figure on immigration. He's also rejected accusations of watering down promises, saying they would deliver the most ambitious programme for government in a generation.
We embrace the risk that comes with it, because if there was no jeopardy, if there was no resistance, then as sure as night follows day, that would be a sign that we're not serious about delivering change. And I will never do that.
And restaurants in Rome are a step closer to stopping what they call crimes against the stomach. Local councillors want restaurants to limit the price on some of Italy's most popular dishes. Those are the headlines. I'll be back with the news at 6 o'clock.
Thanks very much, Lewis. Crime against the stomach, eh? Time for the weather now, brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. We're going to go straight down to the Met Office and join George Shimon. Good afternoon, George. Do you know, this afternoon it absolutely chucked it down. That's a technical term. And it doesn't look like it's going to get much better over the next couple of days. What's happening?
Yeah, we've got some very lively weather in store for us over the next couple of days. Main cause of concern for tomorrow is this very active frontal system we have coming our way. Got some spells of very heavy rain that will be with us in the afternoon, potentially 2 or 3 o'clock, and it will persist for the rest of the day. This will result in accumulations around 15 to 25 millimetres in most places. There is a risk of 30 to 50 on the hills, and this will result in some standing water and localised flooding in prone locations, and this will cause some rather difficult driving conditions, unfortunately. Additionally, as that low pressure system, which is now named Storm Dara, crosses over the area later tomorrow and into Saturday, that will cause some very strong winds. Peak of those winds look to be overnight into Saturday and Saturday morning itself, but potentially seeing some wind speeds between 60 or 70 miles an hour with those gusts, potentially 70 to 80 in the most exposed locations. Eventually, that low pressure system does seem to track into the North Sea and become less of a concern as we head into Sunday. Still remains quite breezy on Sunday, but nowhere near as stronger winds as we have on Saturday. But yeah, a very active and very lively couple of days in terms of the weather coming our way.
And George, it does feel like the weather's been especially bad over the past few weeks. Have we just forgotten it was similar last year?
I think so, yeah, and we didn't really have much of a summer to speak of either, so it's just been a very terrible year in general for the weather. But yeah, maybe next year will be better.
Keep everything crossed. And I'm guessing you're quite busy down at the Met Office, because when we know there's bad weather forecast, obviously people have got events coming up, and obviously you keep a close eye and close contact with emergency services as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's perfectly natural for people to be concerned about extreme weather events like this. There's a lot of liaising in the background between very different organisations within the government to make sure our response is appropriate and maintains safety amongst the public. I think there's been a few concerns about the Santa on a bike and the tractor ride and stuff like that. So understandably, people are concerned about those events, but I think public safety remains the priority for us.
Well, George, thank you so much. Is it too early to ask if there's going to be a white Christmas?
I think it's a bit too soon to ask, but yeah, who knows? It might be.
You never know. George, Thank you so much indeed. That is George Shimmin down at the Met Office. And of course, we'll keep you up to date with the very latest with regards to the weather. We know one of the events that has been cancelled already is the Nobles Park Run on Saturday morning. That could be a good or bad thing, depending on how active you're feeling, I guess.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Cannell's Agricultural Supplies have been serving the good folk of the north for over 30 years, supplying homegrown wheats, whole and rolled oats, working clothing, fencing, animal feeds, parts, tools and emergency supplies. Call Julia on 880206 or find Cannell's on Facebook.
Patricia Wild Opticians is celebrating over 30 years of friendly, caring service in Farm Hill and Ramsey. Visit us for professional eye care with stress-free parking. Phone Patricia Wild Opticians on 813 977.
For over 25 years, Langness Maintenance Services have been the block paving specialists, including property maintenance, fencing and landscaping. Fast, reliable and competitive. For a free no-obligation quote, call Paddy on 49667. Langness Maintenance Services, 49667.
One architectural design company has particular expertise in achieving planning approval for a wide variety of projects, from landmark buildings to spectacular homes. Talk to the experts at Ellis Brown and get your project off the ground. For excellence in design, search Ellis Brown.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio at 7.5 minutes past 5. We're going to bring you a rather harrowing story now from the Isle of Man Courts of Justice that was heard today. 3 men have been jailed for a collective total of more than 46 years after raping a teenage girl. Our news editor Tessa Hawley was in the court for the sentencing, and just before we go any further, a warning that naturally this report is going to contain information you may find distressing. Tessa, a very significant sentence handed down today.
That's right, for a very significant offence. James Marcus Doherty, Graham Peter Skillicorn and Stephen John Cannon were sentenced today for attacking the 18-year-old girl back in 2022. Now, they were told they'd behaved like a pack of animals after subjecting the teenager to a sustained assault at a property in Annika. Now, these defendants had denied the offence of rape, but they were found guilty after a trial.
Now, Tessa, we're obviously not going to go into the full details of the case, but would you be able to briefly outline the circumstances of what happened?
So the teenager had met up with the trio after a night out with a friend on the 24th of June 2 years ago, and the court heard the victim had been particularly vulnerable at the time she was targeted, as she was not able to consent and did not know fully what was happening due to the alcohol and drugs that she'd consumed. Her victim impact statement was read to the court today, and she described how her life had been changed forever. These horrible men made me feel my life was worthless, she said. I hope that no other girl or woman has to go through the pain that I have.
OK. As we said, some significant sentences handed down.
That's right. So Doherty, who is 41 years old, was sent down for 16 years, with Deemster Cook telling the court he still, to this day, cannot accept he's done anything wrong. Skillicorn, who's 65 years old, was jailed for 14 years and 6 months, and Cannon, who's 45 years old, was jailed for 15 years and 9 months. All 3 men have been placed on the sex offenders register for life, and restraining orders were also imposed.
And just finally, Tessa, did the Deemster have any parting words for the defendants?
He did. He told them that they were all liars. And in a poignant moment, once they'd been removed from the dock, he turned to the victim and told her, "You are not a liar. There are only 3 people who are liars. What a courageous young woman you were and are."
Tessa, thank you so much. You can find more details about this story at manxradio.com, and on that there are also links to organisations which provide support if you need it. It is 5:10. The Health Minister has been reflecting on her transition from backbencher and member of a Policy Alliance pressure group to leading one of the government's most challenging departments. Claire Christian shared her thoughts with Christian earlier this afternoon.
It's very different going from a backbencher, even with positions as the Economic Policy Review Chair, to a department minister, and certainly one with the capacity in Department of Health and Social Care, because it's very much in the department as much as I can be in every day. Whilst being a backbencher, you can tend to sort of, go from many other different topics. This is a focus on one area. So that in some ways is a slightly different change. But I have scheduled, I do schedule time aside for my constituents, which are extremely, really important for me, because after all, the Douglas South constituents put me here.
And what are your immediate priorities for the Department of Health and Social Care? Because I'm sure you can appreciate there's a lot happening.
Yeah, so the focus over the coming months will obviously be, the priority will be to maintain the level of services that people rely on and ensure value for money. Obviously, we are looking at this includes identifying more efficiencies in how we run our services and prioritising resources, and obviously aligning in the immediate focus, obviously aligning the operating plan with the mandate, and the budget is key.
You were part of a policy alliance with Douglas Central MHK Chris Thomas, also Onchan MHK Julie Edge. Is that disbanded now?
No, it certainly hasn't. The policy alliance was really about alternative policy to government, and I still hold the values and priorities that I believe that I haven't changed. And just because I now have accepted a role in the Council of Ministers, I now have an opportunity to share these priorities directly with the Council of Ministers and serve our community.
So the Council of Ministers is effectively getting 3 perspectives for the price of 1, I suppose.
Exactly. It's a good deal.
That is Health Minister Claire Christian speaking to our Christian there. And of course, lots more questions to ask her, including her decision to vote in favour of ousting the Chief Minister in that no confidence motion a couple of months ago. Do you remember that? We'll have more from her about that tomorrow morning on Manx Radio Breakfast. It's 5:13 now, and Treasury is seeking specialist legal advice over some of the costs incurred during the project to build the Isle of Man ferry terminal in Liverpool. Now, in the House of Keys this week, the Minister, Alex Allinson, admitted the final cost of the £70 million plus development is still unclear. The Treasury Minister was asked to reveal how much of the contingency budget had been used, but refused to say at this stage.
There is ongoing legal adjudication on a range of different payments that have already been made by the DOI towards the various contractors involved with this quite complex scheme, and also some payments that are now being requested, which are being disputed. And as soon as we have that final sum, which will obviously be, unfortunately, above the £70 million he talks about, then that will be brought back to Tynwald in terms of a supplementary vote by the Department for Infrastructure. One of the intricacies of the contract is that adjudication and any legal disputes over some of the disputed sums involved can continue for up to 12 months from the completion of the project. So we're certainly looking into the first and second quarter of next year, but we are engaging specialist legal advice to try to absolutely ensure ensure that where the Department for Infrastructure feels that an overrun or an overspend was not as a result of any change in designs or unexpected consequences of the complexity of the scheme, that is challenged absolutely, and we try to deliver a accurate price for the completed scheme going forward.
Treasury Minister Dr. Alex Allinson.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, I don't think there's anything specific to report at the moment, hopefully. There was pretty horrible rain earlier, wasn't it? So there might be a lot of standing water around, so just take care on your way home. The main issues are going to be over the next couple of days with travel, and we also know, obviously, the steam packet isn't going tonight, and the one tomorrow morning is looking like it's going to be at risk. So a decision about that will be made by the master at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. We'll keep you up to date with everything that's happening weather-wise. If you go to manxradio.com, we'll have an article over the weekend with all the latest information. So if there's any events or anything that you want to let us know about, then you're always welcome to get in touch. 166 177 or studio@manxradio.com. And just down at the airport, a couple of little delays, but again, warning about that travel disruption over the next couple of days and advising passengers to prepare for that due to the severe weather conditions forecast for especially Saturday.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside. It's 16 minutes past 5 now. The inquest into the death of a missing fisherman has been opened at Douglas Courthouse. Tessa has this report again for us, and this will again contain details you may find upsetting.
Lee Scott's body was found by divers searching the Capitol's inner harbour on the 13th of November. The 46-year-old who lived in Douglas had been reported missing 5 days earlier. Today at Douglas Courthouse, Coroner of Inquest James Brooks confirmed that CCTV had shown him entering the harbour on the 8th of November. He said Mr Scott's body had been recovered from the seabed from an area of deep water by a dive team. The police officer who attended the scene noted he'd been in the water for a length of time. A subsequent post-mortem found he'd drowned. Coroner Brooks told the court it wasn't possible to determine at this stage Mr Scott's exact date of death. Investigations are continuing and a full inquest will be held in due course once all available evidence has been gathered. Mr Scott's body was released so that funeral arrangements can take place. At the time of confirming Mr Scott had been found, the Isle of Man Constabulary said it would continue to support his family. They also thanked members of the public for their assistance with the search for him and asked them to respect the family's privacy and refrain from any further speculation.
Tessa Hawley reporting. Once again, you can find details of organisations which can help if you're affected by any of the issues you've just heard about. It's 17 and a half minutes past 5. The Isle of Man Anti-Cancer Association has joined forces with the UK-based charity Orchid on a new campaign to highlight the symptoms of prostate cancer. Now, this is going to roll out for 8 weeks across Ellen Van and Fuel garages on the island, and it's in a bid to educate men and also their families. So the campaign will see petrol pump ads and surrounding posters drawing parallels between filling up your car and the symptoms. Malcolm Clegg is the charity's chair. He's been talking to Siobhan about what inspired the campaign.
Isle of Man Anti-Cancer has been interested for quite some time in raising awareness with prostate cancer, as there's no proper screening programme on the island, and it is the commonest male cancer. So we have been working with an organisation in the UK, along with Orchid, which is a fighting male cancer charity, and put together a very nice a campaign based around men's wording, you might say, and using the analogy of the petrol pumps and a man emptying his bladder, so to speak. So it catches the eye. There's going to be some posters in the EVF fuel stations, which will catch the eye of men talking about having to squeeze the last little bit of urine out of the bladder, or a little bit of what we call after dribbling, which men encounter as they get a bit older, and may well be an early sign of prostate cancer. Men aren't very good at coming forward And partly some of the bad results or poor results with prostate cancer is that men delay coming forward to get sorted out and therefore require more treatment. And in some cases, the treatment is not successful. And Chris Hoy, for example, is a good example of raising awareness. He is a younger man than prostate cancer usually occurs in, but it's nice that he's been very open about his presentation and trying to get men to be more forthcoming and come forward early to get better treatment.
That is the chair of the Isle of Man Anti-Cancer Association, Malcolm Clegg. And it's such a good idea, isn't it? Because it will really get people thinking when they see those posters, and it really does conjure quite an image. But Malcolm's right, it's something that's really important to talk about. And sometimes men aren't necessarily comfortable thinking about that sort of thing. So that sounds like it's a great campaign. It's going to be rolled out along those EVF garages over 8 weeks. Now, a returning member of FC Isle of Man's promotion-winning side from the club's first season back in 21-22 thinks the team should be targeting the NWCFL Premier Division playoffs as a minimum this campaign. Jack Kamada re-signed for the Ravens last week and says how it feels to be coming back to the island side.
I'm absolutely over the moon to be back signed with the club. It's been, 2 years now since I was last with the club, and I've been sort of playing my football higher up the pyramid in the UK, and sort of just seemed the right time to move back to the club and sort of help them this year with the promotion push.
You've been playing in the Northern Premier League system with firstly Dunstan and then Ashington more recently. So what are the biggest things you've picked up, do you think, skill set wise at the higher level?
I'd say the first one would be the amount of experience I've gained from a lot of the lads over there who have been full-time footballers. Obviously, you get a lot of older lads now sort of wanting to come and play non-league because there's hardly any travel involved compared to being in a full-time club, so they seem to come down a level as they get older, and sort of just learning off them really about certain points in the game, certain stuff to do in the game. Being a midfielder, you learn a lot off them, and obviously the managers I've worked with as well, they're really, really high-level managers as well, so I've learned a lot over the last 2 years.
What are your fondest memories to this point of FC Isle of Man in your previous stint here?
Obviously, that first season was unbelievable. We won the cup, we went up in the playoffs. For me, that was the first time I've experienced something like that. The amount of fans what were at the games in that first year was something I could only dream of, to be fair. Playing in front of nearly 2,000 people every week, and then we had the luxury of near enough a full stadium for the semi-final and the final. Loads in that first year, and I'm just really happy to be back.
What do you think both you and the team are capable of for the rest of the campaign?
Well, I think the team is more than capable than winning that league, and if that doesn't happen, well, I think it's a minimum really that the club has to finish in the playoff places. And then obviously the club's already been there, hasn't it, in the playoffs. So if we can get there, we know that we'll get all the fans behind us, and fingers crossed we can achieve promotion at the end of the season. And then touching on me, really, I sort of want to come back into the SELP and use my experience, what I've gained away for the last few years, and really help the lads, achieve that goal.
That's Jack Kamada, who has re-signed for the Ravens, talking to Rob there. FC Isle of Man's next match is scheduled for this Saturday. It's against Prestwich Hayes at the Bowl in Douglas, kicking off at 6 p.m. We'll keep our eyes on that one. And reigning sidecar TT champions Ryan and Callum Crowe are targeting success in the British Sidecar Championship for next year. Talking on the Journey to a Dream podcast for Manx Radio, the Jerby brothers say they are also fully intending to defend the TT titles they claimed this year.
You don't see Anthony Joshua winning a world title, do you, and then walking away? You've got to defend that title then, haven't you?
This is what I said. So it was only the other day someone said this to me, why are you carrying on? And I said, you've got to defend, you've got to go prove them now that it wasn't just a one-off. You've got to prove a point that we are fast and we want to, again, take that top step, and that's where the focus is going now. We're just trying to find that extra little bit. People probably say, what more can you find on that bike? And
there's always more.
Yeah, we think we can find a bit more, so that's where it is now, getting some modifications done.
Plan on doing the British Championship next year as well, so that's an extra cost of what it is, but we strongly believe in how we can progress and how we prepare and how we present our team. We can attack anything really, if you know what I mean. It's one of them things to be, if you can be British champion and Isle of Man champion in 1 year, that would be even better again, so let's see if we can go for that.
Do you ever worry about how much you've spent on this?
It is a massive expense, but there's another thing I was going to say was, if there's anybody out there in the world and they have a dream, you cannot sit and think about your dream. You're never gonna live your dream thinking about your dream. You've just got to go out and tackle that, chase it, no matter what it takes. You've got to go for it, because if you get to 60 years old and you're still thinking about that dream, you will feel like you've wasted your time.
And what is brilliant is, I mean, we haven't really talked about the Andrews Racing Association, but I know that's been part of your lives as well. And hopefully a really positive future for sidecar racing, because I think people worried it was sort of going off a little bit, but there seems to be something that's driving people forward in this now.
Yeah, I think this TT coming up, I think you're about to see one of the
best entry lists you've seen in a long time.
That is Ryan and Callum Crowe talking to me on the Journey to a Dream podcast. Why ask a short question, Rob, when I can just carry on rambling and rambling, as I'm doing now. How are you?
Oh, very good, thanks. You're covering all the bases, that's how I put it.
That's it, isn't it? So we know that the weather is looking a little bit dicey for the weekend, but some sports news before then?
Indeed, and one of the big bits of news coming out today is cycling news. An international cycling event will take place for the last time on the island in 2025. Organisers of Gran Fondo Isle of Man have announced the 10th and final edition of the meeting will be held from the 19th to the 20th of July next year. Well, whilst the exact reasons for dropping the event are not entirely clear at this time, officials say there are mixed emotions over the decision and that the organising team is already working on other possible future events. Well, in recent years, Gran Fondo Isle of Man has featured 6 races across 2 days involving different distances and difficulties. The headline 137km Gran Fondo race has included some of the Isle of Man's top professional riders in the past, such as Sir Mark Cavendish, Becky Storey and Tyler Hannay, as well as Island resident and former world champion Ben Swift. Between 2021 and this year, the event has also been a qualification round for the UCI Gran Fondo World Series and the only round of its type to be staged in the British Isles. Well, entries for the event will open on New Year's Day, so Wednesday the 1st of January 2025. You can find out more details at manxradio.com. Elsewhere in football, the latest fixtures in the Isle of Man Under-18s League took place at the Bowl in Douglas last night. Well, we say fixtures. There were due to be 2, but that was reduced to 1. And in that game, Corinthians A and Laxey played out a 1-1 draw. The other match saw Douglas High School Old Boys awarded a home walkover against Braddon. And there was disruption last night to the hockey action in the west of the island. The mixed Division 2 contest between Castletown Cushags and Valkyries D had to be postponed due to a waterlogged pitch at QE2 in Peel. It's hoped another of the rearranged league matches can go ahead tonight. That sees Backers B face Valkyries B in the mixed Premier League at the NSC at 8:10 tonight. A number of matches are still to be played across the divisions due to postponements 2 weeks ago caused by Storm Bert.
And Rob, we know that there's another storm on its way. As ever, we'll keep everybody up to date with all the scheduled fixtures for the weekend.
Absolutely we will, yes.
Yes, good luck. I mean, I don't know why I say good luck. Good luck, Rob. Good luck with that. Oh, dear. That's all tonight. Oh, dear.